5:01 officially, and our chairman, Mr. Feinauer, is on vacation, so I am happy to be able to run this meeting. Welcome to all of the folks here in the audience, as well as anybody that happens to be watching on TV. I want to remind the trustees and the public that this is the public hearing to adopt the district's budget, the final meeting to adopt the budget for the 2016-2017 fiscal year. That is the only order of business that we are going to do today as we work our way through that. In reviewing what we're doing here, on September 15th on 2016, we, the trustees, adopted a proposed millage rate of a decrease of 11.29% as a percentage of the rolled back rate, which equates to a decrease in ad valorem tax revenue for the 2016-2017 budget year of $1,462,679. We are proposing at this time no additional changes to that budget that was approved at the first public meeting. As outlined at the first public budget hearing, the assessed property tax values in Indian River County are increasing over 5% this year from the previous year, and the cash brought forward from this year's offsets the slight increase in program and administrative expenses, allowing for us to decrease our millage, thus decreasing the ad valorem tax revenue needed to meet our needs. Before we move on to approving the resolutions that will adopt our final millage rate and budget for the upcoming year, are there any comments or questions first from the trustees?
Yes. I thought we still have an ability, even this evening, if we wish to make some changes, that this was not a final budget at the last meeting. And I still have certain problems with certain issues. We have a new item for $550,000 for health needs assessment. And then we have another health needs assessment reserve of $250,000, which it seems to be a redundancy there, and I would like to try to remove some of that from the budget to make it more equitable for our taxpayers. I know we've discussed reserves and some of the other items, and it was brought out by Mr. Jones that we would raise the money but not spend it. And my concern is the money is not ours but the taxpayer. And I would prefer that the taxpayer keep the money in his pocket, because we have our district board is good intentioned, but as somebody once said, the road to hell is paved by good intentions. And I find it difficult to believe that a government agency will raise money and then let it sit there and not get spent, just from seeing how they operate. And there were other questions I had. We do have a reserve now of last year of $1,106,000, which we did not have to use, and this year we're raising it to $1.5 million, which I think is a bit excessive. We also have an indigent care reserve, which we haven't had in the past, of $425,000, which I also have a lot of trepidations about. And the other thing which bothers me on principle is that we have $100,000 put away if one of the programs does well and accomplishes its goals as a bonus. And my concern has always been, what happens when the provider provides substandard service and is not doing a good job? We don't have a penalty, so I don't see why we should be offering incentives or bonuses to do your job. And these are issues which come to somewhere around $1.3 million, which is almost about 15% of the budget, of the actual budget. And I'm a very fiscally conservative person. I do believe in paying items that we have to pay. And I also have a record of paying above average salaries in my own business, which was non-unionized. And the reason being, I paid a higher salary than anybody else in New York City. in the laboratory business, and I gave a better benefit package. And I think some of our providers should be we should be looking more at rewarding the Indians. Now, I have another problem with the budget. In the hospital has asked for $48,000, and we're going to give them $5,468,000, and our budget has $5,763,000. The hospital has been trending down, and they've recognized that, and I don't see why we should be giving them above what they've requested, and that comes to roughly $250,000. And again, this is not our money, it's the taxpayers' money, and I think we have to be really good stewards of the taxpayers' money. And I wonder at this time if we could make some changes in these items.
Thank you, Dr. Weiss. I think we've had a lot of discussion on each light item. You have the right to make an amended proposal, amended resolution when we come up for vote. And I would suggest that if you feel strongly about doing that, that you do that at that time.
Okay.
Okay. Any other comment from trustees? Any public comment at this point? Yes?
Good evening to you. My name is Stuart Kennedy. I pay taxes, and you are going to be taking some of my money to look after things. And I endorse what Dr. Weiss was saying in many aspects. A couple of weeks ago, I attended the Taxpayers Forum at the Country Club, and we had all the candidates for your board attending and making their comments. And one of the things that came out fairly loud and clearly from that was a concern about the way the hospital is looking after the finances, and how their reporting comes back to you and whether you are satisfied with what you hear. I haven't spent great time looking into this, but I, like everyone else, reads newspapers, and I must trust that there is perhaps some smoke there around the fire. I'm concerned about that, and then I read, as Dr. Weiss has said, that you want to pay $250,000 to the hospital for some incentives. I find those two elements opposing. And I would seriously ask you to review this and to decide whether, in your use of our money, as is being so often said in government these days, it's not government's money, it is the taxpayers' money which you are using, that you perhaps review that line of incentives. But I just want you to be certain, please, that you are spending our money in the correct fashion, and you have confidence in the information you're being given to ask us to pay that money. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment at this point? Okay, if not, I am going to move on to adopt the millage rate resolution 2016-01. I would ask for a motion from the trustees to adopt resolution 2016-01, which adopts the millage rate of 0.8443.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion from the trustees?
Yes, if I'm going to make an amendment on the budget, should we have some idea of whether or not, how that will affect the millage rate? It should be lowering it somewhat. Although, if we have the millage rate the same, I'd ask our attorney, do we have to correct all of these funds? Are we locked in? If we have this millage rate, that would mean that we'd have to take all the monies that we're already looking for now. If I make my proposal, which I doubt it's going to pass, but to lower some of the expenditures, we have a lower millage rate. So how do we address that? Because
You've got to make a motion that has to be seconded. Amended motion has to be seconded before it can even be discussed or considered. So why don't you make your motion?
About the actual budget or the adjusting the millage rate to the proposed budget?
I'm not sure what your motion is.
Okay, that's what I'm asking you, because we have a motion to accept the millage rate, but I have an amendment to the budget which would affect the millage rate by lowering it.
Typically, we have to adopt a millage rate, so we don't go through and change all of the line items. The millage rate is what has to be adopted. The line items can be changed throughout the year. I mean, the different agencies have come back in the past. If there's money in the budget or someone else doesn't use their money, it can be moved around, but the millage rate cannot be changed once it's adopted.
All right, so if I am making an amendment to the budget to lower the budget, should we then have an amendment to lower the millage rate? But we don't know what the new millage rate would be.
That's right. We
have to
needed to
propose
do
it.
that prior to
have to
here. We
propose
don't
it
have
now.
the capacity or the facility here in order to calculate those millage rates in these chambers like we do at our office in the budget. That is what we talked about last time in these chambers when you approved the millage rate. The budget is what calculates in order to come to the millage rate and the tax dollar. And we need to do those calculations in order to come to that millage rate. If you wanted to lower the millage rate, we needed to look at those things and do those calculations prior to this forum. We don't have the ability in this forum to be able to calculate a new millage rate. I guess you can propose a millage rate, and then we can a lower millage rate. If you have some idea of what that number is, you may propose a lower millage rate, and we can work the budget down to that approved millage rate, if that
If it was
is what
seconded and
is the
passed.
pleasure of your board.
Okay, because the way I look at it, I would be proposing a budget that would be roughly 10% less than the current proposal on the table, in which case we would have a fair assumption that the millage rate would be decreased by 10%, which would make it somewhere around 0.76.
So is that your proposal,
Yes, I
Dr.
would
Weiss?
propose as a sort of a compromise, instead of 0.76 would be 10%, let's make it 0.78 as a millage rate instead of 0.84. That would be my proposal.
Is there a second to that?
With no second, we don't move forward on the amended motion, and you go back to your original motion.
We'll go back to the original motion of adopting a millage rate of .8443. I had a second to that.
I have another question. If we adopt that millage rate, does that mean we automatically are adopting the budget?
Excuse me?
If we're adopting this millage rate, are we automatically adopting the budget?
You are adopting the budget, but like I said in the past, go ahead.
There's
Marie.
two votes here. One is for the millage
second
rate,
will
and the
adopt-
second one
will
is
adopt
for
an
the
ad valorem
actual
tax.
dollar value for
Right.
the
There's
for
a
the
second
budget.
resolution.
You still may move dollars around within your budget, but you will be assessing that millage rate.
No, I understand
Bring
that.
those tax dollars that
The
you,
idea of lowering the budget is to lower the millage rate, and these two are intertwined.
Right.
that's right.
So
May
That
I
makes-
make a
makes it a little
statement?
difficult.
Yes. Ms. McChrystal?
I, by the way, was not at the taxpayers' meeting as a candidate. I was on vacation and riding a horse, actually, but I was, I am going to be at the next one, and they're going to give me just a few minutes to introduce myself, so I just wanted to clarify that. They weren't all there, because I was not there. But also, I participated in the last budget meeting here, that was last week, 2 weeks
2 weeks
ago.
ago.
And I participated by phone. And there was some discussion about the budget and about some changes, et cetera. But prior to my leaving on vacation, we had ample time and much discussion from every member of the district board, and I mean vigorous discussions at chairman's meetings and where everyone is invited, posted chairman's meetings, everyone was invited. There was public comment, all the agencies had input, and we discussed ad infinitum, if that's a good term, the budget. And I find it very difficult to sit here and listen to last-minute changes because someone hadn't thought about something prior to it. And I'm not accusing you, Dr. Weiss, of that at all, because you're very thorough in your thinking and your assessments. But I never remember in the history of this board where it's been down to this kind of a wire, where people wanted at the second budget hearing, the final one, where all these changes had to be made. We had ample time, hours to discuss this. And so I'm a little taken back by this last minute wanting to change the budget and the millage rate. The millage rate is less than it's ever been in the history.
So what we are here for is to adopt a millage rate and an overall budget. You made an amended proposal that was not seconded, so we're moving on. We've had discussion. Is there any other public comment related specifically to the 8.443 millage rate? If so, can we take a vote? All in favor?
Aye.
All against?
Against.
Okay, so that passes as a 3 to 1.
Majority, yes.
Okay. All right, and moving on then, what relates to that is also the adoption of Resolution 2016-02, which adopts the budget, which is the dollar value of $12,850,895, which relates to that millage rate of 0.8443. So may I have a second to that motion, please?
Second.
Thank you. Trustee discussion?
Is it possible to make an amendment to that, or is?
Any motion, you can propose an amendment, and again, it would need a second.
Okay, I would make a motion that we amend the budget down to $11,514,963.
May I hear, is there a second to that motion? Hearing none, we'll go back to the original motion. Is there any public comment related to the dollar value of $12,850,895? Okay, hearing none. I call all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All against?
Against.
Okay.
Motion carries.
Motion carries. So therefore, we do have the millage rate as a percentage of the rollback rate is minus 11.29% from last year. All okay? All right. So I have a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Any second?
Second.
Okay. Thank you very much.
I wasn't trying to be mean, it's just that
I know.
And
you know what? We didn't know. The line
I didn't agree on the line items. I just hope we have a good, successful year, though.